For today's episode, we have some new content in this show because I do have another professional wrestler. I have two-time ECW champion and 27-time WWE hardcore champion with me, Raven. Raven has wrestled for companies such as WCW, ECW, and even WWE. He is widely known for his psychological mind games and his punk rock persona. The feud he had with the Sandman in the mid-90s is best described as one of the most emotional wrestling rivalries in history. The reason why I said I have new content is that this is my first guest with 2-type diabetes and BPD. Borderline personality disorder is what it stands for.
Actually, I don't have borderline personality disorder. I suffer from histrionic personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and ADD. But I don't think I'm really borderline personality disorder. But I have mentioned that in the past when I thought that but I don't know, and never mind. It doesn't matter.
Right. Anyway, so and HPD, histrionic personality disorder, and NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. And I'm excited to learn more about it. So without further ado, I'd like everyone to help me welcome Raven to Autism Rocks and Rolls. Raven, how are we doing today?
All right, I guess I can stop interrupting you now.
Well, that's good. You doing well though?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Awesome. So my first topic I want to talk about is you winning the ECW Championship against the Sandman the first time. So what was that feeling? How did you feel when you won that for the very first time?
That was the barbed wire match, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was always scared of doing a barbed wire match because you get barbed wire, you get ripped up to shreds, and so I really didn't want to do one, but Paulie knew that I wanted to do one, but I was also scared to do one. So Paulie made me do one. He made me, to win the title, he made me do a barbed wire match. That way there's no way I could turn it down. And then when I told Samuel, I said, listen, if I get in there and I want you to whip me with the barbed wire across my back, I go, and if you hit me once with it and I scramble away, don't do it again. I go, but if I stay there, then keep whipping me, and that means that I'm cool with the whole thing. And once he whipped me with it, I was like, what am I scared of? This doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt bad. There's been worse things that could hurt, right?
Yeah, it did a lot worse, but it's a psychological thing. I was more psychologically, I was totally psychologically fearful of it for whatever reason.
Right, may have been the pointy ends, right?
Yeah, the pointy sticker ends.
That may have been the reason.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them.
I also want to talk to you about your characters, Johnny Polo and Scotty Flamingo. And obviously through wrestling, I learned that it didn't work. So my question is, how'd you make the best out of those two characters?
Well, when I went into Scotty Flamingo, that was a Dusty Rhodes' idea. Like before that, I always wanted to play a pretty boy chicken shit heel. And so I was Scotty the Body to some rich kid who had lots of women and this and that. And then Dusty wanted to put his own spin on it when he brought me into WCW. So he made me Scotty Flamingo, the Flamingo Kid. And similar, but just slightly different. And but what happened was Dusty had big plans for me. And I was really excited. But then Bill Watts came in and Bill Watts took over and he didn't like me. And Bill Watts let me go, which turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because then I went to New York, wasn't happy there, and they made me a manager as Johnny Polo. That was Vince's idea. And I told him, I said, I'm not Johnny Polo. This isn't me. I don't have, my vocal cadence isn't somebody who speaks like they're from upper crust Greenwich, Connecticut. I don't sound like it. I don't look like it. But I made the most of it. And then, but if it wasn't for those two failures, I never would have created Raven.
Right. And my question with Johnny Polo is at the end of the day, though, you finally realize you got to live your dream and you made the best out of a bad situation. So at the end of the day, it kind of turned out good.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not unhappy with what I did. I'm proud of the work I did. I thought it was hilarious. I thought I did a really good job with what I was given, considering that, Shane McMahon should have been Johnny Polo. To me, that's who Johnny Polo is, Shane McMahon. And the ironic thing is is I ended up becoming really good friends with Shane at that point, and him and his friends in the city, and because I ended up having to move to Stamford, Connecticut, because they made me a producer of Monday Night Raw, an associate producer of Monday Night Raw, and so I had to move to Connecticut, and I became really good friends with Shane and his buddies, and so I was an actual member of the Mean Street Posse for a shoot before there ever was one on TV. That was Shane and his buddies in real life, because those three guys really were his best friends, and I was one of the actual original Mean Street Posse.
That's awesome. Now, what's Shane McMahon like in real life? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know anymore, because when I came back as Raven, he wasn't the same friend anymore. You know, I mean, not that he was a dick or a jerk or anything. A dirk. That's a dick and a jerk. Not that he was a dick or a jerk or anything, but he was he wasn't the same. You know, so you know, like we didn't hang at all. He didn't want to pal around anymore. So I was like, all right, whatever. You know, people move on, change.
Yep, and that's what Autism Rocks and Rolls supports, is we got to move on and change in life.
Yeah, so you have autism, huh? What and how does it affect you?
Well, my autism affects me because it's different phases of life. So when I was younger, I could not go into Walmart at a certain time because of meltdowns, because of the sensory lights and buzzes, like basketball buzzes. I don't know if you've been to basketball games or not, but when the clock goes down, the buzz goes, and for me, it's like, whoa, it's too much sensory overwhelm.
And so you said, but I mean, not to make this about you, but I'm fascinated, but because you're so high functioning, you know. I mean, I've seen autistic people that are strapped to wheelchairs and can't function, but you seem really like you. I would never know you were autistic if you didn't say you were.
Oh, I've heard that many times, Raven, but you would not know unless you lived with me. Do you want to say something, Mom?
Sure, if it's okay if I interject, just from a mom standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Sam was diagnosed when he was 4, and it kind of started with loud noises. But then, believe it or not, Sam, you know, with the podcasting, he's just absolutely a genius with it.
He's flourished with it, I bet.
He really has. We have our own nonprofit, Autism Rocks and Rolls Corporation. He's our executive director. Excuse me, and I'm the president, and we have a board of directors of 5. So he's an entrepreneur. But
wow,
you know, autism is tough because, believe it or not, he can be, social things are kind of hard for him sometimes, in big crowds and things like that. But yet he talks to big crowds. So it's being in a crowd is scary, but talking to a crowd isn't. Yeah.
In retrospect, I could agree with that. If I'm in control, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
He has a really hard time, but he's getting a lot better at, if he's around, you know, if he's standing around like shooting the shit with 10 people, and he tries to go into the conversation and come out of the conversation. That's very hard for him.
Right.
Because people that are on the spectrum, you know, it's a spectrum. So you have
right.
very low functioning and very high functioning. So, but as parents, what we always did with Sam, honestly, Raven, is we never looked at the autism first. We always knew that Sam could be successful and always encouraged him. I never held him
That's
back.
great. And that's a tough job being a parent of an autistic child.
Yeah.
You should be commended too for raising such a good kid.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There were some hard days, but being a parent is just hard in general, I think.
Yeah, I definitely I never had kids because I didn't want to I was afraid I would never have the time for them. I didn't want to be like my parents were to me and not have, you know, not give enough affection and love and have enough time for me. And so yeah, so parenting is a tough job. That's why I said nope, not for me.
Yeah, I've heard that too with the wrestlers. I've heard it takes a lot of time on the family, so I can totally understand that, because I don't know if I would be a good father if I was a pro wrestler, because I'd feel too bad about not making the time for them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, a lot of times people just have kids because they're supposed to have kids, you know, and then, you know, like, I mean, there's been times I've wanted kids, but mostly, you know, it's just for a selfish reason, like, you know, to mow the lawn, you know, or when I turn 80 to take care. Oh, she can laugh. It's okay.
Okay.
Laughter's fine. Laughter makes it makes it sound more enjoyable to the listener.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. The more I think about that, yeah.
Because if you think about it, if you're the listener and you hear laughter and you were going to laugh at that, then you know it's okay to laugh, you know?
I'm gonna take that now because I've eliminated laughter before, like a lot more laughter. I'll leave it in now.
He doesn't let me. I don't know. So Sam and I are we co-present sometimes at some of the autism conferences. And I'm a teacher. I'm an educator here in Indiana. So I talk a lot, but yeah, Sam and I are a team and it goes pretty smooth most of the time.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I also want to talk about your character, Raven. So my question is, does Raven and Scott Levy have any similarities? Are they the exact same person, or are they totally different from each other, or are they both?
Yeah, they're both. It's Scott Levy multiplied by 10 and multiplied by 10. And it's the part of me that I don't show in public.
Oh,
Like Raven is the part, like I'm always like a joking, having fun, but I'm tormented on the inside kind of guy, you know, the crying on the inside kind of clown. And Raven just puts the crying on the outside.
right.
So
And I know you're a comedian, so you think comedy helps with releasing that inner, maybe, or?
I think that for the most part, I've after all the time I've spent on a psychologist's couch, that I've pretty much dealt with my issues. I mean, they still flare up, but I'm not crying on the inside anymore. I'm content, you know.
That's good. We all got to get to that at some point in life. I mean,
Well, actually, let me interrupt for a second. I'm not 100% content. I don't think anybody is, you know, and anybody who is, I wish that was me, but I'm like 75% content.
well, that's good. That's a good percentage to be, I think, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to ask you this from a professional wrestling standpoint. I saw that in your career, you turned babyface and heel. So do you like being a babyface or a heel better?
Hate being a babyface. I prefer being a heel, except on independent shows, because on independent shows, I'm usually wrestling local talent. And the audience pays to see the name people. So they don't pay for the local guys. The bigger crowds pay for the star. And so to turn myself heel when they came to cheer for me, and just for an independent show when I'm not coming back, you know, maybe ever, or maybe in a year or two or whatever, it's not fair to the fans to force them to boo me. But when I'm on TV and doing weekly episodic TV, then yeah, I prefer being a heel. I would never want to be a babyface in that condition.
Me too. I'm a nice guy, but I think I would like as a wrestler to play the jerk. To be honest with you. It's because in a way you can be more creative and go out of the box in a way.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing too, is I just got a text from my partner. She told me to shut up. I'm talking too loud because it's overflowing into her office. So hopefully I'm still talking loud enough for you to hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, we bought a new house together, and then and her office was upstairs, and mine was downstairs. But my dog can't go up the stairs anymore. He's like, he's gonna be 13 on June 1st, and he's an old pit bull, and we've had him for 12 years, and she wanted to be down here with him, spend more time with him, and she's locked away in her office all day. So she moved downstairs. So now we have competing offices.
Yeah, that's I bet hard at some points.
Only when I'm doing podcasts.
Yeah. Sorry.
Which is a great excuse for me to say, oh, I can't do it. But I wanted to do yours because of your autism. The fact that you can function and obviously by your look, you're very happy. You seem like a really happy guy. Or maybe it's just a facade, but or maybe you're just happy when you're podcasting.
Yeah, I'm happy in life. I mean, there have been days where I've hit rock bottom, but I think some days we all gonna hit rock bottom.
Of course, everybody does. Right. Everybody has bad days.
Of course, that's human nature to have a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to talk about your ring style. So you're a hardcore. So what about the hardcore wrestling style do you love?
I love the fact that it gives me so much more creativity because of all the props. You know, like like if you notice, my hardcore matches are nothing like anybody else's. Like they're not just me swinging a chair to swing a chair. There's a story I'm telling. You know, the heel's getting heat and the babyface makes a comeback. And we use creative spots like when Rhino gored the shopping cart in the red at Backlash, like '99, and he gored and fit his whole giant body inside the shopping cart. And then I brought a kitchen sink, which I brought to ECW originally, and hit him with a kitchen sink, you know, because of the cliche, everything but the kitchen sink. It's an old cliche. There's he's done everything, but he's hit him with everything but the kitchen sink. So I used the kitchen sink that I bought, went to Home Depot and bought. And so it's just more of a variety. Like one of the most creative things I've ever seen was me and Dreamer were fighting, and his leg, and so we both go down, and I'm getting up first, and his leg's hanging off the edge of the apron, and Beulah comes over and tapes a frying pan to his leg. And so when we get up, so instead of him just hitting me with the frying pan, which he could do and be good, you know, get a pop, instead she tapes it to his leg, and nobody's really paying attention to that. And then but they kind of see it because she's making a big enough motion that, you know, and we're both down so that the eyes are on her. And then because there's a lot of psychology involved. And then we get up and he goes to kick me with his other leg. I catch it and he gives me an enziguri with the frying pan taped to his foot in the back of my head.
That's
So
really
clever.
cool. That's a good wrestling move. That's actually really cool.
That's why I love the hardcore matches, because there's so much more creativity you can use.
Me too. If I was a wrestler, I would love to be the hardcore wrestler, jumping off the top and going through a flaming table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the best. And speaking of the storylines, I heard you about the interview. You said that's what's wrestling missing these days. I'll tell you this. There's one, I think it's starting to come back a little bit, because if you watch the feud between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, their Hell in a Cell match tells a story. They're bringing back the drama in that match.
I mean, I don't really watch current wrestling. I haven't watched it in years for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have the time. And two, because I'm a completist. So I'd have to watch every show. I'd have to watch, you know, all of AEW. I'd have to watch all of WWE. I can't just watch a little bit. I need to watch it all because I'm obsessive compulsive a little bit in that way. And so that's another reason. But the third reason is it's kind of sad. It makes me kind of sad because I never got to be in, when I was in the WWE, I was never used the way I should have been used. I felt like I should have been pushed it to a top level, and I wasn't, and it depresses me. Like it makes me bummed out to watch it and to not be able to, because all I can think of is, man, I could have done that. I should have been in that spot.
Yeah, I hear you. And you could have been a great world champion. I feel like they could have done more with you.
I do too.
Like. Now, I also want to talk about your feud with Tommy Dreamer. And may I add, that was on the top 25 rivalries of all time in a DVD on the 2013. 3 top 25 rivalries of all time. I can't remember the number, but you and Tommy Dreamer were on there. My question is, you came up with when you try to get started with the camp story, you created that, I think. And my question is, where did that idea come from? I
felt like, okay, so the storyline, originally I was coming in for a short period of time and I was hoping to go, to WCW or WWE or Smoky Mountain, but I knew I needed a TV show and to be on to get my character over. And so Paulie was going to bring me in to get Dreamer over. And I figured if we're just going to go start out hot, we need to have something that tells a story so that there's more reason for people to care about us to begin with, because if I'm just showing up out of nowhere and I'm showing up as a new character, and if they recognize me as Johnny Polo, that's going to be a total albatross around my neck, because he's such a completely different character. And so I made sure that we had a story, a backstory, a history, so that people could sink their teeth into it already, and so I made up the summer camp story. And then the whole thing with Beulah came because I was at the Super Bowl, and I was going to a Super Bowl party at some nightclub, and I ran into a Ronnie Gant, a friend of mine who played baseball with the Braves, and he was with Beulah McGillicuddy, and she says, I want to get back into wrestling. I'm like, oh, he introduced us because, hey, it's my friend Raven. This is Beulah, Teresa is her real name. This is Teresa. And he goes, and she goes, I want to get back into wrestling because Raven's a wrestler. And so I go, who'd you wrestle for? She goes, I worked as Pillman's sister in Calgary. And which nobody really knows that, but she worked for a short period of time as Pillman's sister when they were dating, I guess, in Calgary 100 years ago. And so I gave her a picture to Paulie, and he's like, yeah, let's hire her. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm going to stick her with you. I'm like, and I didn't think I needed a valet. Like I always had a valet before, like in Portland, and I had a valet for 2 years. And so I thought, but I didn't think Raven needed a valet, but Paulie was right. He definitely works better with a valet. And so I came up with the whole Beulah McGillicuddy that hit Dreamer. She was in love with Dreamer, but then, and then I was in love with her, and the trio. And that made even the story even more deep, because it's like, okay, obviously they know most people realize the story was made up. Some people may not have, some people may have thought it was real, but whether they thought it was real or not, if we sell it as convincing, they're gonna believe it's real while they're watching it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it became sort of like this oddly love triangle Jerry Springer show kind of ishy, but in a unique way.
Yeah, absolutely.
A hardcore Jerry Springer way.
Yeah. Jerry Springer used to be hardcore. They used to have tons of when Jerry Springer first started, there were tons of fights on it, but then they had to edit it out because the daytime TV.
Right. And I'm just curious for myself, what about Beulah? Is she pretty cool in real life, or?
Yeah, she's very cool. Really cool girl, woman. Sorry. She's a very cool woman. Yeah, and she was great at the job too. She never complained. She was always in the right spot at the right time. Tremendous.
That's awesome. Now, folks, we'll be right back. We're in here and from Place for Purpose. So we'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back. And yes, please check them out, because if you have a purpose, that's the place for you. So now, Raven, I do want to talk to you about your type 2 diabetes. So what does having type 2 diabetes mean to you?
It means I have to watch what I eat. It means I can't just, eat junk all the time. And that's good. I think in a way, I'm glad I got type 2 diabetes, because otherwise I would have turned into a big fat fuck. Sorry about the language. You don't care. I would have turned into a big.
Worse for my editor. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It depends how you're. Some podcasts you can't use the F-bomb, but anyway, I would have turned into a big fat lard ass if I, because I like to eat crap too much, and I like to eat too much. That's my biggest problem with my is when I got type 2 diabetes, they said you got to eat, you got to eat healthy, blah blah blah, and so I can eat healthy, but I eat too much. And if you eat too much, it's like eating unhealthy, because your system can only handle so much food.
Right.
Break it down.
I hear you. Now, what advice would you give to someone who is having a hard time managing the type 2 diabetes, who is like you, who wants to avoid becoming, as you said, a big fat lard ass, but can't help it?
You got to do cardio. Like I haven't been able to do cardio in 6 months to a year, because first I had my knee was so bad that I had to get knee replacement surgery, and so I got my knee replaced like 8 weeks ago, and for about 4 months before that, I couldn't do cardio, so that hurt my because doing cardio is the best thing you can do for type 2 diabetes. It keeps the blood sugar down, and it also helps burn calories and burn fat. So you can eat a little less religiously, and be you can eat a little more, have a little more variety. The only problem that really I come across is, because I've also had a heart attack and I've had 2 stents put in, is I have to watch what I eat from that side. But unfortunately so I can't eat a lot of, shitty fats. So I have to eat protein and more protein, good fats and carbs, but I can't eat carbs because of type 2 diabetes. So it's forcing me to be really creative with my diet, and but I think overall it's a good thing because not the heart attack and the stents, that sucks. But I think the type 2 diabetes, because it kept me from getting out of control diet wise.
And that's awesome. We're working with our diet too. We're going to take a lot of jogs and in the summer and swim. We're big outdoorsy people.
Good. Yeah, it's just I don't mind. I'm not saying look, if I had my druthers, I wish I didn't have type 2 diabetes, but I got to try and look at it as a positive. You know what I mean? It's the best. Why look at it? It's a pain in the ass, but if I look at it as a positive, that it's helped me stay in shape, relatively in shape, then at least it doesn't make me feel as bad that I have it. That I'm not contracted it, that I gave it to myself.
No, and let me ask you this. I know this is kind of an obvious question, but how does looking at the positive side affect you better, if that makes any sense?
It does. It makes me not cry and moan like a baby about having type 2 diabetes. Otherwise I'd cry and I'd be like, oh, why did it have to happen to me? I don't want to be that guy. I never want to be the guy who goes, why me? I try to look at, sure, when something bad happens, I had to get a knee replacement surgery, and I got to get my other knee replaced. So I got to get both, and my shoulder, and I already had one shoulder replaced 8 years ago or something. So I just got my knee. I got to get my other knee in 2 months, and then I got to get my shoulder after that. And so it's going to be for the next year and a half. I'm going to be doing rehab for my body parts. But all I can do is look at it as, but when it's done, I'm going to feel so much better. You know what I mean? Like
it's for a good cause at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. So it pays off. So, and if I didn't look at it that way, I would just, bemoan the fact that this sucks. So I try to look at it as a positive. It's easier said than done, but
Yeah, I hear you. Now I do want to get into the reason why I had you on, which is your histrionic and narcissistic personality disorder. So what does having those two conditions mean to you?
Okay. Histrionic and narcissistic. Narcissistic, I was always an egomaniac, and I never really knew why, but it turns out what I found out from spending time on a shrink's couches is egotism is all based on insecurity. So I really didn't believe, I had no sense of self-worth as a person. So so if you have a lack of self-worth, then you don't feel like you're valuable for anything. So what I would do is, this is all subconscious. I had no idea I was doing this, but I would brag about myself. So, and if I could convince other people that I was great, then maybe they would convince me I'm great. It's called the looking glass self. That's what they termed it, from the Alice in the Looking Glass, I guess, the book. So that's how I always was, but I never realized that until I spent time on a couch with a shrink and got diagnosed, and then I understood it. I was able to deal with it then. And I was like, now whenever I start to get egotistical, I go, oh, that's why I'm feeling insecure. And then I can talk myself down, and then I don't feel insecure, and then I don't feel a need to brag anymore.
Right. And let me ask you this, and this is just another personal question. So does this personality disorders, does that sometimes come off and rub people the wrong way? I know it would rub me off the wrong way, but it may rub someone else off and be like, what is he doing?
Yeah, because who wants to be around an egomaniac? It's no fun. And so I've always had trouble keeping, I've always been lucky to have close friends, but because they could see past the egotism. But after that, I've had a lot of heat with a lot of people because of my ego, and it's my fault, so I take responsibility for it. But it sucked. And then the funny thing was, the more I alienated myself from other people, and the more I wanted to have lots of friends, I would do everything in my power subconsciously to make sure I didn't have friends, because that way I couldn't lose them.
Right. I wondered that too, because from an autism spectrum, I have a very tough time keeping very close friends too, because I'm just afraid I'll become across as an egotistical maniac. And I just wondered sometimes, is it better for me not to, because of my own purpose?
No, you're better off having friends. You're better off making friends. and having as much of a social life as you can, within reason. But, you just have to be aware that, some people are going to be good friends. Like I'm really lucky that my close friends, I'm still in touch with my closest friends. I've had I got 4 or 5, 3 to 5 really close friends, who I could call up tomorrow and, they would be there if I needed them. But other than that, I don't have people that I call on the phone. I don't talk on the phone to people. I don't, it's weird. I want to have friends, but I like being a loner. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, I get that too. I'm kind of like that in a way myself.
Really?
Yeah. Because
Cool.
I want to make the friends, but at the same time, I'm so afraid that maybe it's just better if I leave them alone and not bother them. It's just, I think sometimes I'm too nice and I want to be a loner sometimes too. I prefer my personal time too, but then there are points where I want to be social.
Yeah. It's like I want to spend more time with friends, but then I don't want to spend the time or the effort to do it.
In a way, yeah, that's what it is. Now, I do
Yeah.
want to talk to you about your podcast that you run, The Raven Effect. So what got you into podcasting?
Jericho, I always wanted to do a podcast. Actually, I always wanted to do a radio show when I got done with wrestling. That was my goal, was to do a radio show. And then, but then podcasting came along, and then so I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't have any into it. I had no connections. This is, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years since I've started a podcast. I don't know how long I've had it. And Jericho, maybe let's see, before the pandemic. So it was 2018, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, Jericho called me up and he was starting his own podcast network on, I forget the channel, Podcast One, I think. And so they wanted him to have a couple other people that he thought would make good podcasts, and they would be part of the Jericho network. And so Jericho got Conan and gave me a spot, and a couple other people, friends of his, and Don Callis and Lance Storm did one. And then they ended up wanting to just concentrate on Jericho. So we moved our podcast to a different network and into another network, and now we're on Spreaker.
That's awesome. Now I got to ask, because it's just me being the little entrepreneur I am and the promoter. What about me being a guest?
I would love to, but we don't do guests.
Oh man, if we
Yeah,
did, that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I would love to have you, but we don't really do guests. It's just me and these 2 guys that are buddies of mine, and we just talk about nonsense. It's really esoteric and really, basically it's just having a conversation. It's me and those 2 guys having a conversation, and it started because the guy who did it before them, he was one of my best friends. Me and him would never have any time to talk on the phone, and so we would spend the hour in the podcast just talking to each other. And that would be how we'd catch up every week. And then he ran out of, he couldn't fit it in the schedule. So I had to get 2 other guys or one other guy. And then it wasn't quite working with the one other guy. So I brought another guy in, and then it did work. So it's the 3 of us now. But if we had a guest on, we'd never get a word in the guest would never get a word in edgewise.
Got it. I understand. Now, I do want to talk about your catchphrases. What about me? So where did that come from?
That I made that up. I think I made that up with Dreamer. We were hanging out, or it was Dreamer. It was either me or I either said it or Dreamer's buddy said it, and I forget the exact story, but I keep thinking it was his buddy Martian Boy. Was complaining, what about me? What about Martian? What about Martian Boy? And then I just turned it into what about me? What about Raven? I think, but I'm not really sure. I don't really remember that.
Hey, it was kind of cool to say though.
Yeah. It gets heat because nobody likes a whiner, and it's very whiny.
Yeah, no one likes whiners. No one that I know likes a whiner. If you do, I'm surprised it's crap. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you other said, quote, "The Raven Nevermore," and your character, which I got into later, I forgot to mention, it was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. So this is a personal question. So my personal question for you is, do you like Edgar Allan Poe?
I've never really read him much. I can't say I'm a fan. I can't say I'm not a fan, but I just never really read him. I just, yeah, I don't know. But the catchphrase, go ahead.
I was going to say, from a mom's perspective and from an English teacher's perspective, you need to read Edgar Allan Poe. He is amazing. I teach him. I teach the 8th graders. I think we read 3 of his stories, and he's my favorite. He's incredible.
Yeah, that's what they say.
FYI, if you ever want to read something different, you should 100% read him.
Yeah, I know. I should
read the Raven. It's your character, man.
I know part of me is just obstinate that I don't want to read him for that reason.
There you go.
All right.
Just to be difficult.
Yeah, apparently you got another reason, right? All right, now, folks, we're right back. We're here at the Bluebird, so we'll take her away. All right, folks, we're back. I don't want you to be, and like I said, if you check it out, you'll definitely fly like a bluebird. So now I'm interested in Raven. You went from being a criminal justice to a wrestler, but I am interested about this criminal justice degree. So what got you interested in criminal justice?
All right, well, I went to college. I grew up in Florida, and I went to University of Delaware because I was born in Philadelphia, and I wanted to go back up to near Philadelphia. And when I went to Delaware, I needed a major, and I figured I'd go into law school, or I'd go into the FBI or the CIA or something like that. And so I figured a criminal justice degree was the best thing. I didn't plan on going into wrestling for a couple of years until a couple of years later.
But if you think about it, your life would have been so different if you went into criminal justice.
Yeah, if I would have used my degree, yeah, totally different.
Degree, totally. And do you think that at the end of the day, you would have felt good if you caught the bad guy, prefer to entertaining people? And that's just
I don't know. I mean, it's like I sometimes think about it and wonder, would I became an alcoholic and a drug addict if I went into the FBI or the CIA and had that part of my life, or would I not have, would I bypass that part completely,
Right. And I just looked, one of your personal interests is comic books. So I gotta ask you, what about comic books do you love?
The thing I love about comic books is that there are pictures and words. Like when I read a book, you have to picture the whole story. And if you read fiction, you have to picture the whole story in your head. Whereas with comic books, it's like watching a movie or TV, but you create what happens between the panels.
Right, and you get to make that up, kind of.
Yeah, but it also appeals to my laziness, because then I don't have to, like, that's why I love watching movies and TV, because I don't have to, when I read, I have to picture the story and create it in my head, the situation. I would rather see the situation visually, because I'm a very visual person.
Right, I'm a very visual thinker.
Yeah, me too.
You like that too? Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
It just makes sense too, but then some cases are auditory, but it's for a different time. Now, Raven, these are for some fun questions. So what's like your paradise meal or favorite food, and why is it your favorite?
What's my favorite food?
Yep.
It changes. Like, I'll eat the same thing over and over for 6 months, and then I'll get sick of it and eat something else. So, but ice cream always stays in there, even though I got to watch what I eat because of my type 2 diabetes, but in my heart. But I would say ice cream.
What flavor, man?
It depends. That changes because there's so many different mixed flavors. Like some ice cream has frozen berries in it. Some ice cream has, that you get at the grocery store. Some has cereal in it now. There's all kind of. I like it with a little something more than just one flavor.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes it's like chemistry. The mixture goes well.
Yeah. That's also with a sandwich, when they offer double meat, I never get double meat because it takes away from the bread to meat ratio. Like it makes it. Do you find that for yourself?
No, not for me. I'm the meat guy. I'll prefer all the meat I can.
No, I agree with you.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I never get double meat because I like vegetables and I like condiments on there, so then I can't taste the other. So
yeah, exactly. It throws off the ratio of the bread to the bread condiment to meat ratio. Absolutely. When they put double meat in.
You guys are weird. No, I'm kidding. Now, my next one is, what's your favorite movie or TV show, and why do you like it?
I have so many favorites, and that changes all the time too. But one of my favorite TV series of all time is The Blacklist. It's
I've
still
never
on
heard of
now. It's been on for like 8 years or something like that. 7 years, 8 years. And
Wow.
it's with James Spader, and he's like the world's greatest criminal, and he turns himself into the CIA, and I mean into the FBI, and turns himself in, and then he starts. He starts. You have to find the part of the thing is why did he turn himself in, and he also he has a blacklist of criminals that he thinks are so bad that they need to be arrested. So he gets a. It's a long story, but it's really, really good.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. Now, what's your favorite vacation that you've ever taken, and why did you enjoy that vacation very much?
I don't know, because I don't know the answer to that, because I never really take vacations because I travel so much. So when I'm off, I never really went anywhere. And then with the dog, the dog's never been in a kennel. There's never been a night other than when he had surgery where he wasn't with either me or the missus. And so we've avoided trips because of that, because we don't want him to be going to a kennel, because he would just miss us too much.
Right. Well, you don't want our dog taking us. Our dog isn't like mean. She's just nervous and will bite the vet's hands off if she could.
My dog loves going to the vet because he gets all the attention.
Well, I'll tell you this. I love pit bulls. Yeah. They're my favorite type of dog. And I like I don't like it. I'm just sad that the vet they're so misunderstood, because they always say, oh, pit bulls, they're the worst. They're the dangerous breed. That's not true.
It's not true at all.
No, I met some pit bulls who are just affectionate as crap.
They're one of the most friendly dogs on the friendly dog scale. Like, there's actually a scale, and they're way higher than most dogs. The only reason they become bad is because people train them to be bad. You could train a poodle to be a badass.
I know. That's what I think.
Well, Chihuahuas are the most aggressive dogs you can have, really.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah. Plus the
yippers.
Shut up. All right. Now, this is my last question. So, are there any good memories that you want to tell us about? If you do, why do you remember that memory the most? Now, before you answer, I always like to end with a good memory that made us feel good inside. And it can be with wrestling, with yourself, with the dog, anything you want, and a funny memory that made you laugh and fall on the floor. But that can be anything too, with your dog, with your wrestling career, with an autograph signing. Your call, you want to answer it.
So one of my favorite memories is I wasn't a dog person. It's for a long story. I'll tell it another time. I wasn't a dog person. And so me and the ex-wife, I promised her that we'd get a dog because she's a dog lover. And so after about 2.5, 3 years being married, she's like, you promised me a dog. And I'm like, all right, we'll go get a dog. And she liked big Rottweilers and pit bulls. So she wanted a Rottweiler. So we go to this place and we buy this 127-pound Rottweiler. Like, the dog's giant for somebody who's never had a dog before, since he was a kid. That's a lot of dog to handle for me. And I'm like, all right, if you want it, then we'll get it. And then we were driving home, and I think there was some reason we had to pull over to check on it or something. And we pulled over, and I got out of the car to check on him. And I just fell in love with dogs. All of a sudden I was like, now I get what people mean by dog people. When they say how much they love them and they're like their kid, like, all of a sudden I just had this overwhelming sense of joy from the dog, from just having a dog. And he only lived for a year. His name was Lucian Corvinus Levy. And he only lived for a year because he got a brain tumor. And the worst part was there's nothing more sad than him dying. But the worst part was we spent $8,000 trying to find out that we couldn't fix him. Like, it cost us $8,000 in dog medical bills to find out that there's nothing we can do to save him.
Well, I'm not even getting into a lecture about how the prices are raising, how ridiculous it is, but that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. And then, but then, so that was super sad, and then I cried for like 2 weeks after he died. But then she wanted to get another dog, or she didn't want to get another dog, but she was still looking at dog, people where they sell dogs, or people that have dogs, dog listings, I guess. for like rescue dogs and stuff. And she saw this dog, and I'm like, well, let's go see it. She's like, no, I don't want a dog yet. I'm like, let's go see him. So we went and saw him, and he was like 45 pounds. He was all small and shrunk up because he was abused, and he was a rescue. And she's like, and she went over to him, and he just loved on her. And she's like, I don't know if I'm ready for a dog yet. I'm like, we're getting the dog. And it was the best thing we ever did. And now he was under my desk. He was under there. He'll be 13 June 1st, and he's hanging in there, but he's got some aging issues, but he's really, he's loving my life.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you change your perception and open your eyes, because I encourage everyone on this podcast to change the perception, because Raven, I'm going to tell you this, and I don't mean to make fun of him or poke fun of you, but from your eyes, you would know you don't look like you're successful. And I don't either. I mean, because of other reasons, but society wants to put us in this little bubble of the non-success field, but we can do things to make that overcome. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it doesn't help that I have resting bitch face, like if I'm ever not talking or smiling, or if when I sit, my natural smile is a scowl, so I always look like I'm in a miserable mood. Go ahead.
No, I was just telling her something. Go ahead.
No, so it's just, so that doesn't help matters either.
Well, what I was going to say too was the kind of the mission of Autism Rocks and Rolls Corporation. And I know why Sam brought that up. His biggest mission, or our mission for the nonprofit, is to show the success of everybody, no matter what, no matter if it's, a very small success, if it's a large success. And that is just really in the forefront of the advocacy.
That's great.
That Sam's trying to spread is, yes, I have autism, but I don't want to be ignored, and I can contribute to society very, very well. And that's really in the forefront of what we do at our.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. That's why I wanted to do your show.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And we do appreciate it. With that said, I think that's all. But before we go, Raven, is there anything you like to say, promote, or any closing remarks?
No, but let's do this again in like 6 months.
Oh, nice.
Okay, we'll think about that. Yeah.
That would be great.
Wow, now I gotta beg to do the show.
No.
No, we'll do it. We'll do it.
Absolutely. Did you want to ask him about Tommy Dreamer?
Not yet. I just want to end it well, but I just want to say thank you, Raven. Have a great day. And
Thank you for having me as a guest, and thank you for contacting me. I'm really glad that I got to know you.
of course.